music. Yeah, my music or my sorry, my mic is unmuted. It always scares me. I've done a couple things, Justin. Sorry. Welcome to the podcast. This is Justin Lake, good friend of mine, and I'm just immediately getting into starting to tell you all the fun stories. I've done a couple of these where we've done the podcast and then realized we didn't hit record. So
I understand that.
Yeah, and I was going to say you do a lot of podcasting and probably have a lot of empathy. Just for the folks that have been watching for a bit, we're at 34,563, about 110 days, I think, until I'm at 10 years. So we're still trying to figure out where I end up. It's been a lot of fun. As we were talking pre-show, you and I did the Spartan, and I can't remember if it's the sprint. I don't remember the nomenclature of the different races, but we did a Spartan race together in 2019.
Yep. I think it was a sprint down in Austin, in the Austin area.
And it was fun. It was interesting. And I can't remember where we went, ate afterwards, but it was a lot of fun. I should probably do a little more to be a better host. Justin and I have known each other for about 20 years. I was looking into that, worked together we've worked together in alignment for most of the last years. You've been off on your own, doing your own thing for, is it 8? Is it 10? How is it 10 years now?
Yeah, it's 10 years. It's crazy.
Wow.
You and I met when we were running a circuit where we were both, I think we were partnering with AT&T back in the day. It was after I'd left AT&T, and we were kind of running the circuit of doing all of their little mobility conferences and stuff like that. And you and I ended up with booths next to each other on more than one occasion.
We were doing their road shows, and I was remembering this because I always try, and I'm just a funny person. And I hope he watches the show, but my recollection, like it just happened yesterday, is Tom Martin standing in front of the crowd with a Panasonic Toughbook, grabs a cup of water, and he pours the water, and it goes over the laptop and lands on someone's Dell laptop. And he's standing in front of the crowd. And he's like, well, this one's not waterproof. And it's just, that's how I remember Tom Martin and our time together.
I don't remember that stunt from Tom. I do remember Tom obviously quite well. I don't remember that stunt if I saw that day, but that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. So anyways, back to what were we doing and where our lives kind of aligned in. We were focused in the mobility space. With me walking, I'm kind of back to the same theme, but we were, and I think you're still in that space where we were taking, legacy, sit at a desk type mentality, work processes, and putting them on either some sort of a smart device or something that could be portable, worrying about battery life, all that fun stuff. But we've been trying to, for a long time, help people to be more mobile and active. And you've grown that into you run your own business now. And tell people what you do.
Well, before that, I want to go back to something that you just said. So 2 weeks ago, I was at a conference. It's Connected Worker Energy.
Okay.
And we were there to set up a booth and be a sponsor at the event, but I like to go sit through as many of the sessions as I can. And on stage was a panel discussion where they talked about bringing mobility out to the edge of the workforce.
Okay.
And I said, we could record this session and we could have played it back as if it was 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. We were saying the exact same things 20 years ago. It was like the conversation hasn't changed. The technology, a couple of the problems here and there. Sure, now we have Starlink and other forms of connectivity. It was an energy-focused conference, so we were talking a lot about connectivity out in the oil field and stuff like that. So sure, there's things like Starlink and stuff that didn't exist 15, 20 years ago. But man, the conversations are more similar than they are different. Even though we've advanced in so many ways, frontline workers at the edge of the workforce are still kind of the redheaded stepchildren and seem to be the last to get, a lot of the innovation, and companies are still struggling with the same things they were struggling with 15 years ago.
Even with, and I look through my lens, which is obviously very distorted, but even through the use of BYOD and devices and things like that, it still feels like it's the same conversation and people haven't been able to drag it to, because I'm sort of out of that now. I've been in, network security now for 5 years, so I'm not as close to it, but it's basically the same thing is what you're saying.
I would say it's especially because of what you just said. It's the myth of simplicity. I think business leaders now believe that mobile, the consumerization of IT, mobile is just so easy. Secondhand, I heard through a business executive the other day that they didn't believe, they didn't understand what the problem was with adoption with their enterprise mobile technology, because geez, after all, everybody can go check their balance for their bank account from their mobile app.
Right.
So I think it's actually made the problem worse instead of better. We think that using enterprise technology is the same as posting a video on TikTok or checking your, checking account
Social
balance
media.
from your Chase app. And in
Right.
reality, the two circumstances are very different. They both happen to use the same technology. They both use an iPhone, which is perceived to be very easy. But we're talking about, fairly complex business processes in the context of a complex enterprise where there's compliance and performance management and other things like that that are very different from when you're just
Right.
posting a silly YouTube video, right? Or not YouTube,
Sure.
but TikTok. It could be silly YouTube also. So anyway, yeah. So I think it's just interesting to me. It seems like no matter how many things change, things tend to stay the same.
So to go back to the last question I asked, so you took the, I don't want to say the lack of what you're describing right now, which is this, call it ignorance of how simple this is supposed to be, and you've created a training, and I mean, I don't want to claim it for you, but a way to try and help facilitate the knowledge of the worker. Does any or does any of it focus on educating the executive so that they understand what they're dealing with?
The executive education happens in the sales process. They're usually not the users of the platform that we've built, but we have to educate them to understand why the business outcomes that they seek to achieve are often not being achieved. And we can track it back to the root cause, which is lack of compliance with the business process and
Okay.
the transactional interactions with their enterprise technology. So I think what we see happening is business leaders think it's going to be easy. Again, it's the myth of simplicity. They think it's going to
Right.
be easy. They make an investment. I literally had an executive from one of the big CPG companies tell me one time, just in a private conversation, he said, "Oh yeah, we decided to roll out iPhones so that we wouldn't have to train anybody." And we're literally talking about a company with double-digit billions of dollars in revenue that goes through those devices. Their sales and delivery teams all use those devices. And so
Right.
his position was, if we just choose an iPhone, then we don't need to train anybody. Billions of dollars of revenue going through these mobile devices, and we just don't need to train anybody. We're just going to throw them out there and just see how it goes. And when
My
I talked to
parents
the
both
change
have
management,
iPhones. Yeah,
what's that?
my parents both have iPhones.
Yeah.
They
And
wouldn't be able to run any of these things. So
no, and I think, the whole point of this is that when you're doing things voluntarily, when there's no risk, when you're motivated through personal ambition, because I really want
right.
to know what my balance is before I go run it through the point of sale machine, right?
Right.
You are motivated and there's no risk. When you're in an enterprise environment, you could be standing in front of a customer, your performance is being managed, everything that you're doing is being tracked
Right.
for performance purposes. And so the risk and anxiety goes up exponentially.
Right.
And so it's not just as simple as checking your balance, right? It doesn't have to be super complicated, but we do need to draw connections between the business context and the use of that enterprise technology. And so to kind of go back to how you and I started, in the early days when you and I first got together, we were just trying to connect things. Literally, you and I were both in the business of connectivity. We were just trying to get these endpoint computers, mobile devices of some sort, connected back to enterprise systems in some way. So sure, that problem's been solved for the most part, especially now with things like Starlink. Those problems have largely been tackled. They're still not easy. There's still some things that have to be dealt with. There's multi-carriers and SIM cards and all the other stuff that we've still got to deal
Right.
with. But those problems are largely beyond us. But that's how far this goes back to. Originally, we were dealing with connectivity. Then we spent a little bit more time on the consumerization of IT, bringing in consumer devices from Samsung and Apple and things like that. But
Right.
we are still at a point where we're deploying enterprise technology like SAP and Oracle and ServiceNow and things like that out to these frontline team members. and then just saying like, hey, it's just as easy as a YouTube video. And it's actually really not.
Interesting. So your company helps to facilitate the learning side. You said the sales side is where you educate the guy that's actually paying for it, but the end user that you're trying to take this simple device and this perceived simple process and show them it. Would you qualify it as shortcuts? Would you qualify it as like best standard operating procedure, to use a military term? What are you doing with the application to make them better?
We call it a digital readiness platform. So we are preparing the frontline workforce to make sure that they're as ready to use the digital tools that they need to use to do their job as much as we would train them for how to use the physical manual tools that they use in their job. And so through that process, we create simulations of the enterprise software and the workflows. So just like a pilot learns to fly in a simulator before they go into an actual airplane, we help frontline team members experience those complex workflows in the business context inside a simulation so that they can get comfortable in a stress-free environment where they can be free to make mistakes without any repercussions. They can learn, they can be evaluated. We can assess their knowledge with an objective readiness assessment. And then we can report to them and to their leadership that they're ready to go do this job in production. So what we want is a frontline workforce that is prepared to transact consistently, accurately, and independently so that they have good business process compliance throughout the entire enterprise.
Do you ever find, I think, hey, this is in the world of videocracy. Do you ever find that somebody, you're just like, I have to stop when I say this, make sure we hear, like, this guy just can't run a device. Like we've tried, we've shown him it's not as simple as running an iPhone. Is there ever like a weeding out of, hey, this guy's just not able to handle this sort of situation?
I've not heard of anybody who ends up with that classification. I've heard people that start with that classification. And so if you take a human approach, this is right up your alley. If you take a human approach to this problem and put the technology aside for a minute, and you actually go talk to the men and women on the front lines and you ask them how they feel about all of these quote unquote digital transformation initiatives, you'll hear words like stress and anxiety and fear and frustration. You'll hear all these very emotional words that have nothing to do with packets crossing, WAN networks.
Right.
It's a very personal thing for them. One guy, I did a ride along with somebody with a company that later became one of our customers, but I did a ride along with a delivery driver, and he said, Justin, I just known this guy for a few minutes. And he said, Justin, I'm frustrated about this because I just learned how to use this other handheld. And now they're telling me I have to learn this new thing. Like, I still have 20 stops to make today. And now I've got to learn this whole other piece of technology. And so the words that he used were anxious, stressed, frustrated. He literally was. So I'd known this guy for 3 or 4 minutes at this point, and he's already like opening up his heart to me about the very personal frustration that he felt. So he might be somebody that somebody pointed to and said, oh, that guy Eric doesn't know how to do anything. He doesn't know how to do this stuff. What's interesting is that same person, and this is part of the story I don't tell very often, but that same person in a separate conversation earlier in the day said that he was very comfortable with technology when he thought that we were referring to his gaming system at home. So he's totally comfortable with technology. He's using a high-powered gaming machine. He's, streaming content on the internet every day. He's probably got high scores, and he's tracking all of that stuff. He feels very comfortable, but he's sitting in his comfortable living room, having fun. There's no stress. There's no repercussions to making a mistake. And so when I first asked him about his comfort level with tech, he was like, oh yeah, I'm super comfortable with that. But he, in his mind, was referring to his Xbox X or whatever version he was on, right? And so when I shifted the question and I said, no, I was actually referring to this thing, and I, showed him the handheld that we were about to roll out, that's when all of a sudden, like, a different look came over his face. And so what we hear from these folks on the front lines is that they feel like there's a spotlight being shined on them. And there is, because their job is managed by the hour, by the minute, down to how much performance, how many deliveries have they done, how much product have they delivered, what's the profitability of that route. So they are being judged very meticulously. And when we add then a whole nother layer of them also having to learn something new that feels foreign to them, keep in mind, and this because you and I've been on the backside of this process,
Right.
The team at corporate has been planning this project for 2 years. And then all of a sudden, on the final days right before go live, we all show up with boxes of devices and we say, okay, guys, we're going to show you something new now. Great news. We got new devices. It's faster. It's better. Got a better screen. It's more, brighter display, faster connection, all that great stuff. And many of those people have a knot in their chest, even if the solution is better, even if they've been bitching about the solution that they had before, because it was what they knew. And sure, it was slow and clunky, but it was something that they knew. And so now we're bringing out something faster, less clunky, better display, better performance, all of those things that we know. Those are the reasons that we're deploying the new tech.
Right.
But now we're creating a knot in their chest about how they have to absorb that into their workflow. And at the end of the day, they still have to do the 20 deliveries that they had to do with the old tech. They still have to do that today, right? Whatever their job is, they don't get the luxury of taking 2 days off to go sit in a training center, because if they did, supply chains around the world would stop operating for a day or two, right? And that just can't happen.
Well, so I've heard a couple of things that was going to go on. Do you feel in your experience that it's just change? Would you classify it as Big Brother is watching? I mean, I've heard those words in our conversations in our meetings. I mean, I think, let me let you answer that question before I continue on. But
I think it's all of those things. Yeah, I think it's all of those things at one time. There was somebody, one of our customers did a survey before and after using our platform. And one of the comments came back was profoundly impactful to me. They said, I never once felt going through the simulations that there would be repercussions if I made a mistake. And I thought to myself, I can't even believe that comment came out, because I would never have imagined anyone ever even considering that there would be repercussions for making a mistake during training. So the fact that this person called this out, that they entered into this process with enough anxiety that in a free text field, the question was, did you or did you not feel anxiety? That wasn't the question. It was an open text form field that said, give us some feedback about this program. And this person responded and said, I never felt that there would be repercussions. That's a very strange thing to me. And, as a knowledge worker, I would never have felt concerned if I had to use Salesforce.com and my new boss was telling me that I had to fill out, my opportunities differently or something like that. Like, I wouldn't have been stressed at all. I may not have liked it. I probably would have moaned about it, but I wouldn't have been stressed about it. I certainly wouldn't have felt that there were repercussions about that. But these workers are working in a different paradigm. They work in an environment where their performance is measured, as I described before, because they are in the operational side of the business. They are tied directly to customers and revenue. And so there is performance management in place in a different way than it is for us knowledge workers. And I think that we have to keep that in mind as we're asking them to absorb change. We're asking them to absorb change in a way that still has to account for the fact that they feel that potentially they feel that stress of still having to execute, right?
Huh. And are they, well, I was going to say, we as the sales guys would view, hey, yeah, you still have to do 10 deliveries more a day as you're describing and learn this tech. But the purpose of the tech is to get you to 12 deliveries a day or 14 deliveries a day. And I don't know if the end user not participating possibly in a revenue increase or some sort of a bonus structure for that. I don't know that we're lining up the worker and the manager comp plans, if that makes sense.
It does. And what you're talking about is like, that's very appropriate. Yes, I get what you're saying. It's completely next level in terms of, frontline team member compensation and incentives and things like that, right? And it's a tough leap for some of them to make mentally, to say, hey, this new technology is going to allow me to perform better. I'll get 21 stops done instead of 20 on my same time frame. Right. What many of them are thinking, and actually many of them have said to me, is I don't want to have to stay late on my shift. I just want to be able to get my 20 stops done and get home to my kid's soccer game, just like the rest of us do. Right.
Yep.
And so it's a little bit of a tough leap. In the long run, what you're saying hopefully should be true. I always, when I have a chance to talk to these folks myself, I say, listen, your company's not putting this in place to make your job take longer and be slower and more frustrating, right?
Right.
But that's not the way that they feel in the short term. And also, I think sometimes companies, this does, at the end of the day, this is about change management and communication and things like that. I think a lot of customers, our customers, or companies that we're at least talking to, are struggling to figure out how to communicate these changes of digital transformation. I think what is said on the investor call about the investments that they're making in technology to improve efficiency and improve bottom line results, and all of those other buzzwords we hear from the CEO and CFO on the investor calls, that doesn't trickle down to what's in it for me, the field service technician or the delivery driver, right? To them, it just feels like they're trying to squeeze, more revenue and margin out of the team members. And in some cases that may be true, right? But there's also benefits to them to do that, right? We want to be able to keep your amazing benefits. We want to have more time to serve your customer and less time coming back to the depot at the end of the day and having to fill out your paperwork, even if that quote unquote paperwork is digital. So the more that you can do on site, you can come back into the yard at the end of the day, you can turn in your handheld and you're done for the day. Like, that's awesome.
Right.
But it's not always communicated as well as it could be by the time the game of telephone happens from corporate all the way out to the field. And so you create the circumstance where the people at the edge of the workforce are frustrated and anxious and all the other things that we described before. And they're the people that are dealing with your customers. So we need to make this process easy for them. We need to give them an environment that's optimized for learning for them, to absorb that change into their day, and recognize the fact that they are virtually always time constrained because they don't get to only do 10 deliveries today instead of the 20 that they had to do yesterday, right? They still have to do the same amount of work. So how can we weave this into their life so that they can still be successful with both their job and the technology together?
I hear across all these conversations and talking to friends and people that we're all domesticated wild animals. Like, it seems like the weak link in most cases feels like communication. Your spouse, your kids, your coworkers. So does any of your tool attempt to help on that communication side? Like, do you guys do, I don't know if it's a marketing or I was sitting here trying to make it. I don't want to make a joke, but it sounds like I'm asking you, do you have any education for the education?
Yeah. So actually the tool is, as you just said, it's a platform, it's a tool. And whether you use a hammer to drill, not to drill, but to hammer in a nail or to punch a hole through drywall, like, it's just a tool. You can use it however you want. And so the best examples are those where customers are using it to actually set the stage in advance of the change, using the platform to communicate about the changes. It could be something as simple as a video posted by the CEO that's sent out to all of the people that are about to absorb this change to say, hey guys, there are some changes coming down the pipe. Here's why we're doing this. Here's how it's going to impact you. Here's what you should be looking out for. We've invested in this technology to make your lives easier, better, faster. But in the short term, there's probably going to be some discomfort and pain, right? Like, let's not hide away from those things, right? So what we have found is one of the early indicators for success of a project and with our company is if there's a strong presence of change management professionals involved in the program. If a company is making investments in change management team members, that is a recognition from senior level executives that this isn't just about the tech, it's about the people and about the change and how they absorb that change. And so that is an early indicator that we have some people on the customer side of this who recognize that change isn't easy. It's not just a given, and that we do need to position all of this change, not just in terms of what are the technical issues that we need to talk about, but also, how is this going to impact your job?
Let me shift gears with you. You and I, we started off by kicking off with the Spartan Race. You and I have known each other for quite a while. You're one of the only guys that when I eat lunch with, I have a salad with. I've watched you. I meant that with as much love as I could, because I felt like after I said, I'm like, no, that sounded bad. You wear straight pants, and so do I. No, I've watched you in the 20 years, and I made the joke that I was going to say I knew you when you had hair, and Annie's like, that's the dumbest joke ever.
and
And
was
you were
fat.
heavier. Yeah, I was just
Yeah,
saying you
fat.
were a heavier human. So,
Yeah.
I'm going to wrap this all back to you're a business owner. You're full of stress. I see you. You look healthy. You've had a lot of change along the way. How do you manage the stress that's on you for the expectations you have to have as a business leader?
Stress is probably the 11th word that I would list on a list of top 10 feelings that I have. So
Okay.
uh, that doesn't mean that I don't have a lot on my plate. It doesn't mean that I don't grind every day trying to solve problems. But to me, stress is like the negative word, and that's not how I
Right.
feel. So I would say I start every day, and really my highest priority is maintaining my health.
Okay.
So I focus a lot on my health, mental health, physical health, my nutrition, right? You can joke about my
Yep.
salads, but that's why I eat them. Uh, and so that is my first and foremost, because I can't be of any value to my family. I can't be of any value to my company, to our investors, to our customers, to my friends, if my body is not working.
Okay.
So I focus first and foremost on my health. Next is my family, without question. I've been married for coming up on 30 years now. I have a 22-year-old son who's about to graduate college. So have a lot of amazing things going on at home, and that keeps me grounded, and that reminds me of what's important in life. And so by staying
Awesome.
healthy mentally and physically, I can be there for my family, hopefully set a good example for them as well, and participate in all the great activities that we do outdoors and stuff like that. And then last is that I'm on this work mission, which I've been on for 10 years. And so, yeah, there's a lot going on, but it doesn't, I mean, yes, there have been stressful times. There have been long days. There's been a couple of times when I've tried to put my head down on the pillow and I'm not super, relaxed.
Right.
Yes, of course, those things happen. But really, I think the best way for me to describe entrepreneurship is this realization that it's like a Rubik's Cube. I need to get a Rubik's Cube for my desk. It's like a Rubik's Cube. I was never the guy that I never figured out the right protocol. I'm sure there's a YouTube video that I could learn how to do this on YouTube, to figure
Yep.
out how to do that in 3.7 seconds or some crap. That
Yep.
was never me. Actually, funny enough, when I was young and Rubik's Cubes first came out, I figured out how to solve it by just taking it apart and putting it back together in the right order. That was how I
We're
solved
the
that.
same. We're the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah.
I did the same thing.
Yeah, so that made a lot more sense to the way that my brain works.
Yep.
But in reality now, the reason I think it's like a Rubik's Cube is that I feel like I get, one day or 1 week or 1 month I solve for the green side. And I'm like, okay, perfect. I got the green side figured out. I'm going to go work on the blue and yellow stuff now. And then I go and start working on the blue and yellow. And then I look back and the green side's all messed up. And I'm like, damn it.
Yep.
I missed something over there. Right. And so
Right.
that's what it is. But I live for this. Like my only regret is not doing what I'm doing now, probably earlier in life. I didn't know that I had the right tools earlier. The wisdom that I earned through doing other things throughout my career probably prepared me for
Yep.
my shift in 2015. But I'm happy that I got here, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
No, that's awesome. What are you doing? I know you were a big mountain biker for a while. Are you still doing mountain biking? What's your preferred method of blowing off steam?
So I pretty much am a 7 day a week guy doing something. 4 days a week I strength train, and 3 days a week I ride. I'm still a mountain biker.
Okay,
This
good.
time of year it's a little sketch when it's raining and stuff. All the mountain biking trails around Dallas Fort Worth closed down. So
Yep.
I have an indoor trainer, so I keep my legs moving in the off season and in inclement weather. But if I have a chance, I'm going to use. So basically, I strength train Monday, Tuesday. I ride Wednesday, strength train Thursday, Friday. I ride Saturday and Sunday. That's pretty much my routine. And yes, most weeks something comes up. I've got to travel. I got to do something. I got a 6 a.m. flight or something. So one of those days gets blown up. Rarely does it slip below 6 days a week. Even
Okay.
when I travel, I get to a destination. I always have appropriate attire with me to go do something outdoors. So, make sure, or at least at the gym or whatever, wherever I'm at. So I keep a pretty good cadence, and that to me is my morning. Couple hours in the morning when I first get up. I'm an early riser. I get up at the crack of dawn at 5 o'clock, and the first couple hours of my day involve coffee and some type of fitness, and that's my mental health balance. And then I can go tackle the day from that point forward.
Do you prefer free weights or machines?
Yes. I have both.
Okay.
I actually just installed. I work out at a gym at home. I actually just bought and installed last week a new rack and functional trainer system. So I've got a full cable system with 2 weight stacks now, so I can use a pin selector. This is a very big deal in my morning efficiency because it was very clunky and cumbersome before.
Yeah.
So there's a place for both in my routines.
Okay.
And when you're working out with free weights, obviously there's flexibility in your motions and all of that kind of stuff. The disadvantage is that you can't control the tension across the entire full range because you're depending on
Right.
gravity. So
Yep.
with a cable system, you can get resistance across the entire range. And so that's why I have now a cable system as of this last weekend, 3 days ago.
Fantastic. I had no idea. That's great. And I hear you on. I've started to say this to people. I don't have any more time in the day. Like, I'm looking for efficiencies and ways to be more effective in what I have, and I don't have any room to add anymore. So I appreciate that. Coffee, black, or are you putting in some sort of magic mushroom cream or something like that?
Definitely not mushroom cream.
Okay.
I drink my coffee black. A lot of times, if I have milk around, I'll put milk in, but I won't go out and
Okay.
like make a special trip for milk. If I have it around, I don't mind a little dash of milk in there, but yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Mostly black.
Mostly black. Okay. And are you still, I mean, I'm still mostly 16/8. Are you eating breakfast again, or are you
I
mostly
eat
kind of
about
start
every
at
3
noon?
hours throughout the day. Yeah.
Okay.
I am very focused on my nutrition. I track my macros and calories, probably within single digit percentage points of accuracy. I weigh most of the food that I eat.
Okay.
So I'm pretty accurate on that. I do not do anything time based. I'm not trying to restrict from timing standpoint.
Okay.
The benefits of time restricted eating are basically just about calorie reduction. So at the end of the day, it still just boils down to, what total calories you're consuming against your energy consumption. And for me, just find it works to know that I'm never more than 3 hours away from my next meal.
Okay. And I'm assuming most of those are home cooked, or are you doing food prep on Sundays? How are you making sure that you can stay on track the best way?
Yeah, we eat out. First of all, at home, we basically never eat out.
Okay.
When unless I'm traveling, we pretty much eat at home. So there's that. It
Yep.
is virtually impossible to know what you're eating when you're at a restaurant. It doesn't matter what the
Yep.
calories and the macros say on the menu because you
Right.
don't know that the kitchen's actually making it according to the menu. And it tastes
Sure.
better when they take half a stick of butter and throw that on your grilled chicken because it
Right.
tastes pretty freaking amazing when they do that. But they're
Yep.
adding 300 or 400 calories. That's mostly fat calories. So does it taste amazing? Sure. But it makes it very difficult for you to track. And
Sure.
300 or 400 calories difference is the difference between being in a deficit or being at maintenance or, being over, right?
Yep. Yep.
So we prefer to eat at home just because of the predictability. My wife and I are very fortunate. We don't need a lot of variation in our diet. We're really very simple when it comes to our diet. I don't
Right.
meal prep on a per meal basis. What we do is we prep protein typically in bulk. So I don't know if this is really the level of detail that you're looking for, but if I'm going to make I'll make a ground turkey meatloaf and I'll put it on the smoker.
Okay.
I will make 8 pounds of that at one time, 10 pounds of that, 12 pounds of that. I'll make as much as I have turkey in the freezer that I can pull out and make so that I just go through the pain of kind of assembling the meal all at one time. I'll smoke it. I'll enjoy that afternoon of smoking some turkey meatloafs, pull them all off. I have a food saver. And so I will freeze the entire meatloaf or I'll cut it into multiple meals for my wife and I.
Yep.
And then I will freeze it in a vacuum seal bag so that we have protein for that week, for next week, for the week after, just loaded up. When I cook chicken, I'll cook 8-10 pounds of chicken breast at a time. I'll use it for that meal, for lunch the next day, maybe for dinner the next day. And then I'll put 5 or 6 of those pounds away in freezer packs so that I just have them. So that way, when we want to have an easy, quick meal, we never go out. We just grab one of those frozen things of protein, defrost it in the sink for 15-20 minutes, and then we'll just make some vegetables to go with that or have it with a salad or something like that. So I do like to bulk prep. I don't think of it as meal prep because most of the time when you hear people talk about meal prep, they're actually preparing individual meals.
Yep.
And that just doesn't work for us the same. I mean, it would work, I guess. It's just not something that we've ever gotten into, but I do definitely bulk prep on the protein side.
Turkey. He said, what kind of meatloaf did you say?
It's a turkey meatloaf. So
Turkey
we
meatloaf.
use a lot of, chicken. All the poultry stuff is
Sure.
obviously very lean. We have chosen, I have no issues with beef. We eat beef all the time also. The
Right.
difference is that most cuts of beef, you just can't have as much for the same caloric intake, right? The macros just don't play out. And when you're weighing
Right.
food and you're checking the macros, you'll see the difference between, 6 ounces of ribeye versus 6 ounces of grilled chicken. Now it's up to you to decide if you wanted to get to the same macros, the same caloric intake with both of those meals. Do you want this tiny little golf ball size of ribeye, or do you want a half a plate of grilled chicken or, turkey, right?
Is that a density measurement? Is that you're
No,
referring to?
it's mostly fat content. So in
Okay.
the case of a ribeye, I don't know how much, again, you want to go into this, but fat has 9 calories per gram and protein has 4 calories per gram. So it's more than 2 times the caloric intake for the same amount. So if you take an ounce of fat versus an ounce of lean protein, your difference is more than 2x difference in the caloric intake. So I have no problem with fat. I have no problem with beef. We eat that stuff all the time. But my wife and I have decided that we tend to rather have volume over, the smaller quantity. So like,
Right.
on a Saturday night, we'll have a steak. That's a good opportunity for us to, a little bit of a stay-at-home date night kind of thing. I'll go grill
Right.
up some steaks and we'll take the hit. We'll have a little bit less, or maybe we'll just eat a little bit more than, we otherwise would during the week. But for most of the other meals, we're going to stick to, lean proteins like, egg whites and turkey and chicken and stuff like that.
Are you doing fish at all?
Neither of us eat seafood. So
Okay.
I have no objection to it for others. Obviously, this isn't like I'm not making a nutritional statement. It's just a personal
Sure.
preference. We
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
don't like the look and smell and texture of seafood. And so because both of us are the same, we've never begged each other to go to Red Lobster for dinner or something like that. So we stick with beef, turkey, chicken, pork is pretty much where we stay focused. And eggs, obviously, we eat a ton of eggs. We eat eggs like they're going out of style.
Well, they've gone to like 3x the cost. So
I know.
thanks for continuing to invest in the
Yeah.
time of rise. No, that's great. Do you I mean, we didn't prep for this. I mean, you and I, we always feel aligned. I keep telling everybody, the more boring you can be, like I go to bed at, 8:45, 9 o'clock. I'm up at 5:15. I do my coffee routine, as you said. We go for a walk. We do our push-ups. We go to the freezer. We choose a protein. We let it thaw in the sink for, a few hours, get it prepared. And then we have very similar boring meals every night. And
Yeah.
I do a lot of grilling on the grill. And I started to read about some of the things that maybe are possibly toxic from having the blackness on a steak. And so I'm like, man, am I getting too deep into it? Right? Am I looking at this too much?
Yeah.
But my mission statement is I want to surf at 80. So I'm trying any little incremental deal that I can to make sure that I have some sort of a hack to have a little more pep in my step.
I've never been able to surf even at my current age. So that would be, that would be out of my league. But I said to my orthopedic surgeon who just did some work on my knee last week, I said, my goal is to still be skiing and mountain biking deep into my 70s. Right. So everything that I'm doing today is to prepare my body for 20 years from now so that, 20, 25 years from now, I can still do the things that I want to do. And so eating better today, I don't really feel like I'm making big sacrifices. We're happy with the food that we eat. It's fuel. It is what it is. Like, I don't know.
Yep.
It just, I feel very fortunate. I know some people are very wrapped up in dining. Like it's a big thing. And I think if that's part of who you are, it's going to make some of the things that I talked about today would be very frustrating probably for you to adopt some of the practices. So I guess I'm just lucky that my wife and I are both like, yeah, we're okay with an egg white omelet a few times a week. Like,
yeah,
it just doesn't bother us. And
that's great.
To me, the outcomes are worth any mild sacrifices that we would make. And by the way, I still have I just made, I ate my lunch early because it was 3 hours. I had an egg white scramble with feta cheese in it. It was like flavored feta cheese in it. I needed some fats actually, because fats are still important in your diet. And
Right.
so I actually added feta cheese into that. This morning, the eggs that I had some actual eggs along with some egg whites. Again, I have no problem with the cholesterol and fat in eggs. It's just that I want more volume. So I put 2 eggs in, so I get a little bit of the fat from eggs. And then I put 250 grams of egg whites in there, so I get more volume. And so I get all the protein I need. I get a little bit of the fat that my body needs. And that's a pretty filling meal for me.
It sounds delicious. I'm starting to get hungry, and I think I have eaten less than 2 or 3 hours ago. So I got to wait a little longer.
Yeah,
Supplementation. Are you doing fish oil? Are you
I do.
doing a multivitamin? What does that look like?
I don't do a multivitamin. I get a lot of vegetables in. I eat a variety of meats and proteins. So I feel like for most other multivitamins, I haven't seen anything that I'm not deficient in anything that I'm aware of other than magnesium. And so I do supplement magnesium. I'm actually experimenting with a few different sources of magnesium right now to figure out what are the right ones for me. That results in some like muscle spasms that appear to have to do with like the connection between your essentially your nervous system and your muscles and how they trigger the muscles. And so I do get some spasms that seem to be relieved when I am taking a mix of magnesium sources. So it's a bit of an experiment. From the reading that I've done, the testing for this is more complicated than just experimenting because there's no downside to having a little bit too much magnesium. Like your body will just flush it out.
Right.
So I'm basically just experimenting on my own, a little biohacking to kind of figure out what works for me. And so I'm taking 2 different pill forms of magnesium today. And I do take fish oil because we don't eat seafood. And still want those omega-3s for brain health and stuff like that. And that's really it.
I will have to compare because I take 2 different forms of magnesium as well. One I think is supposed to be for more mental, and I think one is for sleep, or maybe it's even 3 different forms because I've also found magnesium is very important, and I feel differently when I'm doing that. Interesting.
I haven't
So
noticed any like cognitive changes. I definitely notice the lack of spasms. For me, it happens at the end of the day. Like I'll be sitting in bed and all of a sudden like my calves and toes just start like kind of firing off and it becomes uncomfortable. Like I literally need to get out of bed sometimes to deal with that cramping. And so it's very motivating for me to solve this. And I don't have a hard time remembering to experiment with these, magnesium supplements because it does seem to be helping.
Have you tried any turmeric at all?
I haven't.
Turmeric's one that my mother-in-law, my wife, I take it as well, but and mine was relieving cramping my hands. Us and our iPhones and constantly doing things with devices, I was getting pretty crampy hands, and so with turmeric, mine seems to have gone away. But I'm also, as I said, taking 2 other forms of magnesium, so maybe I'm giving credit to the wrong person. Who knows?
There you go.
Do you have any misogis or any adventures on the short term, like in 2025 scheduled?
I don't. I've been racing mountain bikes in the summer, and I'm planning to do the summer series again. So there's a local race series that happens up here in my town in McKinney. 10 races in the middle of like June, July, and early August. It's dreadfully hot. We race at 7 p.m. on Thursday nights. So sometimes at the starting line, it's 98, 99, 100 degrees in the middle of the summer. And we go race as fast as one can do. And for the grouping that I'm in, it typically my lap is about 40 minutes. It's actually 3 laps that we do in about 40 minutes. So that's really what I'll be preparing for over the next couple of months. It's a fun race. There's nothing other than bragging rights at stake. It's just, it's a local race. It's 6.5 miles from my house. So it's easy to get to and work into my weekday. Doesn't mess with my weekends. And after doing this now for a few years, I've gotten to know some of the guys that I race with and stuff like that. So it's been fun. And so that's cool. My plan for now.
Awesome. No, that's cool. Last set, because I'm going to try and be conscious of your time. Hot and cold experimentation. Are you sauning? Are you jumping into cold plunges? Are you doing anything of that at all?
Zero.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did 6 infrared sauna sessions as I was it was being held at the tanning place. So as I was getting prepped for our vacation that starts tomorrow, I liked it. I could tell I could tell I would have been a lot more uncomfortable if I wasn't good at meditation and being able to be comfortable with myself sitting there and just like, yeah, you're going to breathe through this. Yeah, you've been in worse situations, you know?
Yeah.
Okay. You just haven't experimented.
I haven't.
Anything that you thought that I was going to pull out and say, gotcha, like anything you were expecting and didn't show up?
I did not expect you to throw me any major curveballs. So no,
Okay,
I didn't. It's been a good
good.
chat.
Well, I appreciate you. And I've talked about this, I think, with others. I never look at this as sort of a one and done. I think we're humans, communication ongoing. You know, I'd love to be able to invite you back and get caught up, you know, sometime in the future.
We'll do it again. Thanks for having me, man.
Awesome. I really appreciate you, sir. Take care.
All right, man. We'll talk
All right,
soon.
see you. All right, thanks. Bye.